The alarm bells rang through the massive space station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as soldiers ran to their positions. Today was the day they had been training for. Commander Lee Dae-ho stood in the briefing room, his hands behind his back. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. 20 years in the military had made him tough. He had fought in 7 different wars across the galaxy, but today felt different. "Listen up," he shouted to his soldiers. The room went quiet. 2,000 men and women stood at attention. They were the best fighters in the Galactic Defense Coalition. The 47th Planetary Assault Regiment had never lost a battle. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin stepped forward. She was Commander Lee's second-in-command. Soo-jin was smart and quick. She could make battle plans faster than any computer. Her black hair was tied back tight, and her uniform was perfect. "We have a problem," she said, pressing a button. A hologram appeared in the air. It showed a dark planet with swirling clouds. "This is Kepler 442b. The mining colony there went silent 3 weeks ago." The soldiers looked at the spinning planet. It looked angry, like a storm frozen in space. Sergeant Kim Tae-woo raised his hand. He was the biggest man in the room, with arms like tree trunks. "What kind of mining colony?" he asked. "Rare earth. Metals," Soo-jin replied. "The kind we need for our ships and weapons." The colony had 5,000 workers. Now we get no signals from them at all. Corporal Yoon Nara stepped closer to look at the hologram. She was the team's tech expert. Her job was to keep all the communication systems working. "Maybe their equipment broke," she suggested. "No," Commander Lee said firmly. 3 weeks ago, they sent one message. It said, "Help us." Then nothing. The room felt colder. "Private first." Class Choi Min-ho shifted nervously. He was the team medic, a quiet man who preferred books to battles. "What do we know about the planet?" he asked. Lieutenant Soo-jin pressed another button. Numbers appeared next to the planet. Class 13 Deathworld. Gravity is 3 times stronger than Earth. The air will kill you in minutes without a suit. Strange. Magnetic fields that mess with electronics. Private Shin Bio Ram listened carefully. She was the youngest soldier there, only 22 years old. Her job was scouting, going ahead to check for danger. She was small and fast, perfect for sneaking around. "Have other people been to this planet before?" she asked. "Yes," Commander Lee answered. 12 different mining companies over the past 1,000 years. All successful. All profitable. That's why this silence is so strange. The hologram changed to show pictures of the mining colony. Large metal buildings sat next to huge machines that dug deep into the ground. Everything looked normal and peaceful. "The colony is called Hope Station," Soo-jin continued. "It has been there for 50 years. Never had problems before. They mine deep, sometimes 5 miles down into the planet's core." Sergeant Tae-woo cracked his knuckles. "Sounds like rebels or pirates. Attack them. We go in, clean up, mission complete." But Commander Lee shook his head. "It's not that simple. Look at this." He pressed a button on his control pad. The hologram showed the planet from space. "See those ships around the planet? Those are from 3 different companies. They all went to check on their mining operations. They all went silent, too." The room went very quiet. Soldiers looked at each other with worried faces. "How many ships?" Corporal Nara asked. 15, Soo-jin replied. "With over 8,000 people total." Private Min-ho felt sick. 8,000 people just disappeared? "That's what we're going to find out," Commander Lee said. "Our job is simple. Land on the planet. Find out what happened. Rescue any survivors. Secure the mining operations." He walked to the center of the room. "This is a Class 13 Deathworld. That means everything on that planet wants to kill you. The air, the ground, the plants, the animals, everything. We go in prepared for anything. Private Bo-Ram raised her hand. Sir, what kind of life forms are on the planet? Lieutenant Su-Jin pulled up another screen. Strange creatures appeared. In the hologram. They looked like nothing the soldiers had seen before. Some were like giant insects with too many legs. Others looked like plants but moved like animals. The survey teams found these creatures 50 years ago, Su-Jin explained. Most are not dangerous to humans in armored suits. They avoid the mining areas. The colonists never reported problems with them. Never? Sergeant Tawu asked. Never, Su-Jin confirmed. The wildlife stays away from human technology. It's like they're afraid of it. Commander Lee looked at each of his soldiers. We leave in 6 hours. Check your equipment. Rest if you can. This mission might take weeks. Sir, Private Minho asked, what if we can't find survivors? Then we find out what killed them, the commander replied coldly, and we make sure it doesn't happen again. The soldiers began to leave the briefing room, but Bo-Ram stayed behind. Something about the mission bothered her. Commander, she said quietly, in my scouting training, they taught us to watch for patterns. 12 companies over 1,000 years, all successful. Then suddenly, everything goes wrong. That's not normal. Lee looked at the young soldier with respect. What do you think it means? I think something changed on that planet, Bo-Ram said. Something that wasn't there before. Or something that was sleeping and woke up. Commander Lee stared at the hologram. Of the dark planet. Maybe you're right, Private. That's why we need scouts like you. 6 hours later, the massive fleet prepared to leave. 25 ships carried the 47th Regiment toward Kepler 442b. The journey would take 3 days through hyperspace. As the ships jumped into hyperspace, none of the soldiers knew they were flying toward their doom. They thought they were going to fight rebels or pirates or wild animals. They had no idea they were about to wage war against an entire planet. In her small bunk, Private Bo-Ram looked out the window at the swirling colors of hyperspace. She had a bad feeling in her stomach. Something was waiting for them on that planet. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. She checked her equipment one more time and tried to sleep. In 3 days, she would need to be ready for anything. The fleet flew through space toward the Class 13 Deathworld, carrying 2,000 of humanity's best soldiers to face an enemy they couldn't imagine. Only one would return to tell the tale. 3 days later, the fleet arrived at Kepler 442b. The planet looked even worse up close. Dark clouds spun around it like angry spirits. Lightning flashed constantly in the atmosphere. The whole planet seemed to pulse with a strange, sick light. Commander. Lee stood on the bridge of the main ship. Report, he ordered. Sir, said the ship's captain, we're getting strange readings. The planet's magnetic field keeps changing. Our equipment is going crazy. Lieutenant Su-Jin checked her scanner. I'm detecting the mining colony. It's still there. But I'm not getting any life signs. What about the other ships that came here? Commander Lee asked. We found them, the captain replied grimly. Crashed on the surface, all 15 ships. Some look like they just fell out of the sky. Private Bo-Ram felt her stomach drop. 15 ships with 8,000 people, all crashed. What could make ships just fall from the sky? Sir, Corporal Nara called out. I'm trying to contact the colony, but something is blocking our signals. It's like the planet itself is jamming us. Commander Lee made his decision. We go down in small groups. If something is making ships crash, we don't want to lose everyone at once. The soldiers prepared to land. They put on their heavy armor suits that would protect them from the poisonous air and crushing gravity. Each suit weighed 200 pounds, but on this planet, it would feel like 600 pounds. Remember, Sergeant Taewoo told his squad, stick together, watch each other's backs. This planet wants us dead. Private Minho checked his medical. Supplies one more time. I've got medicine for radiation poisoning, toxic gas exposure, and alien diseases. I hope it's enough. The landing ships descended through the violent storms. Lightning hit them several times, but the ship's shields held. As they got closer to the surface, the soldiers could see the mining colony below. Something's wrong, Private B.O. Ram whispered. She had sharp eyes from her scouting training. The buildings, they looked different. Commander Lee looked through the window. The mining colony was still there, but strange growths covered the buildings. They looked like crystals, but they pulsed with light like they were alive. What are those things? Lieutenant Su Jin asked. Before anyone could answer, the landing ship shook violently. Alarms started blaring. Engine failure. The pilot shouted. "We're going down!" The ship crashed hard into the ground. The soldiers were thrown around like toys. When everything stopped moving, Commander Lee counted his people. 20 soldiers in his ship. 3 were hurt, but alive. "Report from other ships," he ordered. Corporal Nara tried to use her radio. "Sir, I can only reach 2 other ships. The rest aren't responding. How many soldiers do we have?" Commander Lee asked. "Maybe 400, Nara replied. "Out of 2,000. The soldiers felt cold fear. They had lost most of their army before. The battle even started. "Sir," Private Ram said, looking out the window, "you need to see this." Outside, the landscape was like nothing they had ever seen. The ground was covered with the same crystal growths they saw on the buildings. But these crystals were moving. They grew and shrank like they were breathing. "Those crystals weren't in the survey reports," Lieutenant Sujin said. "No," Commander Lee agreed. "They're new. Something put them there." The soldiers left their crashed. Ship carefully. The planet's gravity hit them immediately. Every step felt like walking through thick mud. The air hissed and bubbled against their suit filters. "Stay close," Sergeant Tae-woo ordered. "We head for the mining colony." As they walked, Private Minho noticed something disturbing. "Sir, these crystal formations. They're everywhere the humans lived and worked, but nowhere else." He was right. The crystals only grew around human buildings and machines. The rest of the landscape looked normal for an alien world. "It's like something is marking human territory," B.O. Ram observed. They reached the mining colony after 2 hours of hard walking. Up close, the buildings looked even stranger. The crystals hadn't just grown on them, they had grown through them. Metal walls had crystal veins running through them like blood vessels. "Sir," Corporal Nara said, checking her scanner, "I'm getting energy readings from inside the buildings, but no life signs." Commander Lee divided his soldiers into teams. "We search every building, look for survivors. Look for clues about what happened here." Private Bu-O Ram's team entered the main colony building. Inside, emergency lights flickered on and off. The crystal growths were thicker here, covering the walls and ceiling. They pulsed with a soft blue light. "Hello?" Minho called out. "Is anyone there?" No answer. But as they walked deeper into the building, they heard something. A soft humming. Sound like singing. "Where's that coming from?" Bu-O Ram whispered. They followed the sound to the colony's main computer room. What they found there made them sick. The room was full of crystals, but these crystals had things inside them, human things. Arms, legs, faces frozen in crystal like insects in amber. "Oh no," Minho whispered. "The colonists ... they're in there." But the worst part was that the faces in the crystals were still moving. Their eyes followed the soldiers. Their mouths opened and closed like they were trying to speak. "They're still alive," Ba-Rem said in horror. The humming got louder. It was coming from the crystallized people. They were trying to warn the soldiers about something. Suddenly, the ground started shaking. The crystal growths began moving faster, reaching toward the soldiers like grasping hands. "Get out!" Commander Lee's voice crackled over the radio. Get out now. The whole colony is. The radio went dead. Outside, the soldiers ran as the buildings began to change. The crystal growth spread faster, covering everything they touched. The ground itself started to move and shift. The planet, Bohrum gasped as she ran. The planet is alive. Behind them, the mining colony transformed into something that looked like a giant organism. The buildings melted together, covered in pulsing crystal skin. And from deep underground came a sound like screaming. The soldiers who escaped the colony regrouped on a hill nearby. Out of the 400 who had landed, only 200 were left. The others had been caught by the crystal growths or lost in the chaos. "Sir," Lieutenant Sujin reported, "this isn't a mining disaster. This isn't rebels or pirates." Commander Lee stared at the transformed colony below. Now it looked less like buildings and more like organs inside some giant creature. "What is it?" "Then?" he asked. Private Buo Ram pointed at the ground beneath their feet. Even here, small crystal formations were beginning to emerge. "I think we're standing on something that's been sleeping for a very long time," she said, "and our mining woke it up." As if responding to her words, the ground began to pulse like a heartbeat. The crystal growth spread outward from the colony. In all directions, the soldiers realized with growing horror that they weren't fighting an enemy on this planet. They were fighting the planet itself, and it was angry. Very, very angry. The crystal growths spread faster each hour. By morning, they covered half the area around the mining colony. The 200 surviving soldiers watched in horror as their landing zone disappeared under pulsing, living crystal. "Commander," Lee called his remaining officers together. "We need to understand what we're fighting," he said. Lieutenant Sujin had been studying the crystal formations all night. "Sir, I think these crystals are like nerves. They carry information across the planet." "Information? About what?" Sergeant Tae Woo asked. "About us," Private Buo Aram answered. She had been watching the crystals through her scope. "Every time we move, they react. They're learning how we fight." This was true. When the soldiers had tried to destroy crystal formations with explosives, new ones grew back stronger. When they used energy weapons, the next crystals reflected the energy back at them. "It's like fighting a computer that updates itself," Corporal Nara said. Private Minho had made a disturbing discovery. "Sir, I've been studying the crystallized colonists. Their brain activity is still normal. They're conscious inside those crystals." "What does that mean?" Commander Lee asked. "It means the planet isn't killing them," Minho explained. "It's keeping them alive. It's studying them, learning from them." The implications were terrifying. The planet had absorbed 5,000 colonists and 8,000 people from the crashed ships. It had learned everything they knew about human technology, tactics, and weaknesses. "We're fighting an enemy that knows us better than we know ourselves." Sujin realized. That afternoon, the planet's attacks became more organized. Crystal spikes shot up from the ground, exactly where soldiers were going to step. The air itself became poisonous in patterns that forced the humans into specific areas. "It's hurting us," Bo-Ram observed. "Like sheep." The soldiers tried to retreat to higher ground, but the planet was faster. Crystal formations erupted around them, cutting off escape routes. The ground became soft and sticky, trapping anyone who tried to run. "Sir," Tawu reported, "my heavy weapons aren't working. Every time I fire, the planet adapts. It's like fighting smoke." Commander Lee made a desperate decision. "We use the nuclear device. Clear a landing zone for rescue ships." The soldiers had brought one small nuclear bomb for emergencies. They set it up in the center of the crystal formations and retreated to a safe distance. The explosion was massive. For a moment, everything went quiet. A huge crater appeared where the crystals had been thickest. "It worked," Lieutenant Sujin said with relief, but she spoke too soon. Within an hour, the crater began to fill with new growth. But this growth was different. It was darker, angrier, and it moved much faster. "Oh no," Minho whispered. "We just taught it about nuclear weapons." The new crystal formations were resistant to radiation. They spread outward from the crater like an infection. And they carried something new, a kind of electricity that made the soldiers' equipment fail just by being near it. The planet learned. "From our bomb," Commander Lee said grimly. "It's using that energy against us." By evening, only 50 soldiers were left alive. The others had been absorbed by crystal formations or killed by the planet's new electric attacks. The survivors gathered in a small cave, trying to hide from the planet's senses. But even here, tiny crystals began growing on the walls. "Sir," Bugoram said quietly, "I've been thinking. The planet only started attacking when we began mining. Maybe it was sleeping before." "So?" Tewu asked. "So maybe we woke up something that was hurt," she continued. "Something that's been hurt many times before." Lieutenant Sujin checked her datapad. 12 mining operations over 1,000 years. Each one dug deeper than the last. Each one hurt it more, Minho added. "If the planet is alive, all that mining would be like surgery without medicine, over and over again." Commander Lee looked at his remaining soldiers. They were tired, scared, and running out of supplies. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it's not evil," Ba'oram said. "Maybe it's just in pain." Before anyone could respond, the cave began to shake. Crystal formations burst through the walls, reaching for the soldiers with sharp, grasping fingers. "Move!" Commander Lee shouted. The soldiers ran out of the cave as it collapsed behind them. Outside, the entire landscape had changed. Crystal formations covered everything as far as they could see. The planet's surface looked like the inside of a giant body, with veins of light pulsing through crystalline tissue. "Sir," Corporal Nara called out, "I'm getting a signal from orbit. Rescue ships?" Tewu asked hopefully. "No, sir," Nara replied with fear in her voice. "It's the planet. It's sending signals to space." The soldiers realized what this meant. The planet was calling to other worlds like itself. It was warning them about humanity. "We have to stop it," Commander Lee said. But as he spoke, crystal spikes erupted from the ground around them. The soldiers scattered, running in different directions as the planet's final attack began. Lieutenant Sujin was caught first. Crystal formations wrapped around her legs, pulling her down. "Tell them we're sorry," she screamed as the crystals covered her. Sergeant Tewu tried to fight back with his bare hands, but the crystals were too strong. They absorbed him while he was still shouting orders to his men. Corporal Nara managed to send one last message before the crystals took her. "Warning to all ships, do not approach. Kepler 442b. The planet is alive and hostile. Repeat, the planet is alive." Private Minho was absorbed while trying to help a wounded soldier. His medical knowledge became part of the planet's understanding of human biology. Commander Lee fought until the very end, but even he couldn't defeat an entire world. As the crystals closed around him, he saw Private Ba'oram running toward a deep canyon. "Run!" he shouted with his last breath. "Someone has to warn them." Ba'oram ran as fast as she could through the crystal maze. Behind her, the planet's consciousness grew stronger as it absorbed the last of her comrades. She could feel it learning, becoming smarter, more dangerous. She reached the edge of the canyon and looked down. Far below, she could see an opening that looked like it led deep into the planet's core. The crystals were closing in around her. Soon, she would be the last human alive on this world. Ba'oram took a deep breath and jumped into the darkness below. She fell toward the heart of the living planet, not knowing if she was running toward salvation or doom. Private Ba'oram fell through darkness for what felt like forever. Her armor's lights showed smooth walls racing past her. The walls were made of the same crystal formations, but these were different. They were older, sadder somehow. She crashed into a pool of thick, glowing liquid at the bottom of the canyon. The liquid didn't hurt her, but it made her suit's electronics go crazy. Warning lights flashed as her air supply started to fail. Pulled herself out of the pool and looked around. She was in a huge underground chamber. The walls curved up and away like the inside of a giant egg. Everything glowed with soft blue light, and she was not alone. The chamber was full of crystal formations, but these contained more than just the recent colonists. Ram could see figures from different species, aliens she didn't recognize, wearing strange clothes and armor from different time periods. 1,000 years of mining, she whispered. All the victims are here. As she walked deeper into the chamber, the crystals began to pulse brighter. She could hear voices, not through her radio, but directly in her mind. Help us. The voices whispered, so much pain, so much fear. Ram realized she was hearing the consciousness of everyone the planet had absorbed. Thousands of minds, all trapped and aware. At the center of the chamber sat something magnificent and terrible. It was a massive crystal formation, bigger than any building Ram had ever seen. It pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat, and waves of light flowed through it like blood through veins. This was the planet's brain. As Ram approached, the crystal began to change. Images appeared in its surface, memories from the absorbed minds. She saw the first mining operation 1,000 years ago. Workers digging into the planet's surface, not knowing they were cutting into living tissue. She saw the planet's confusion and pain as machines tore into its body. She felt its attempts to communicate, to ask the miners to stop. But the different species that came to mine saw the planet's movements as just geological activity. Each mining operation went deeper. Each one caused more damage. The planet tried to heal itself, but the wounds were too severe. Over centuries, the pain drove it mad. They hurt us, the planet's voice echoed in Ram's mind. They cut us. They took our body away piece by piece. We tried to ask them to stop, but they could not hear us. Ram felt tears in her eyes. You were trying to communicate all this time? Yes, but they only saw rock and metal. They did not see life. They did not see consciousness. The planet showed her more memories. The recent attacks weren't motivated by hatred. They were desperate attempts at self-defense by a being driven insane by centuries of torture. We absorbed them to understand them. The planet explained. To learn why they hurt us. To find a way to make them stop, but you kept them alive, Ram said. You didn't kill them. We do not wish to kill. We only wish the pain to stop. Ram understood now. The planet wasn't evil, it was a victim. A conscious being that had been tortured for 1,000 years by species that never realized it was alive. What about the signals you're sending to space? She asked. The planet's consciousness touched her mind gently. She saw its intention, not to call for revenge, but to warn other living worlds about the danger of contact with species that couldn't recognize planetary consciousness. We must protect our children, the planet said. Other worlds like us. They must hide until the galaxy learns to see us as alive. Ram's air supply was almost gone. Her suit was failing in the planet's energy field. She had minutes to live. I understand your pain, she said to the planet. But my people, they don't. No, they think planets are just rocks. If you could teach them. How can we teach beings who cannot see us as alive? Ram thought about her commanders, her fellow soldiers. They were good people, but they had been raised to think of planets as resources to be used. Let me try, she said. Let me go back and teach them. Give me a chance to make them understand. You would die before reaching your ships. Your body cannot survive our environment much longer. Ram felt her strength leaving her. The planet was right. She was dying. Then let me carry part of you with me, she said desperately. Like you did with the others, but different. Let me be a bridge between our kinds. The planet's consciousness considered this. You would no longer be fully human. You would change. Slowly, over time, you would become something new. I understand, Bahram said. It's the only way, and you would feel our pain always. The pain of 1,000 years of wounds. Could you bear that? Bahram thought of her dead comrades, of Commander Lee's final order to warn humanity, of the thousands of absorbed minds begging for help. Yes, she said firmly. I can bear it. The planet's central consciousness began to glow brighter. Crystal formations grew toward Bahram, but these were different from the ones that had trapped the others. These crystals were gentle, almost loving. We will give you what you need to survive. We will share our memories with you. But in return, you must help us heal the wounds between our peoples. I promise, Bahram whispered as the crystals touched. Her armor. The change began immediately. The crystals didn't trap her. They merged with her suit, with her equipment, with her body itself. Bahram felt the planet's consciousness joining with her own. The pain hit her like a physical blow. 1,000 years of mining operations, each one feeling like knives cutting into her own flesh. But along with the pain came something else. The planet's deep love for life. Its desperate hope for peace. Now you understand, the planet said. Now you can speak for us. Bahram stood up, but she was no longer the same person who had fallen into the chamber. Her armor had changed, becoming part living crystal and part metal. Her eyes glowed with the same blue light as the planet's consciousness. The others, she said, looking at the absorbed colonists and miners. Can you release them? They are too damaged. The absorption process was imperfect. We were learning, but you chose this willingly. You can return to your people. Bahram felt sadness for her absorbed comrades, but she understood. The planet had been acting out of pain and desperation when it took them. With her, it was different. This was cooperation, not capture. Go, the planet said. Tell your people what you have learned. Help them see us as we truly are. Crystal formations formed a path leading up from the chamber. The planet was creating a way for Bahram to reach the surface. As she climbed toward the light above, Bahram carried within her the memories and consciousness of an entire world. She was no longer just human, but she was still herself. She had a message to deliver that could change the relationship between humanity and the universe itself, if she could survive long enough to deliver it. Bahram climbed through crystal tunnels that the planet created for her. With each step, she felt the changes in her body growing stronger. Her armor had become part living crystal, part metal. Her blood now carried traces of the planet's consciousness. She could feel the planet's pain like a constant ache in her bones. But she could also feel its hope, the first hope it had experienced in 1,000 years. When she reached the surface, Bahram found a world transformed. The crystal formations had grown into beautiful, organic shapes. They no longer looked angry or aggressive. Instead, they looked almost artistic, like sculptures made by a grieving artist. We are creating a memorial, the planet explained in her mind, for all who died here, human and alien alike. They will be remembered. Bahram walked across the crystal landscape toward where her ship's emergency beacon should be. The planet guided her, creating safe paths through the formations. Will you let rescue ships land? She asked. For you, yes. But only for you. We cannot risk more contact until your people understand what we are. 3 days later, a rescue ship appeared in the sky. Bahram activated her emergency beacon and waited. When the ship landed, she could see the fear in the crew's faces through their helmet visors. Stay back, the rescue team leader shouted. Identify yourself. Private Shin Bahram, 47th Planetary Assault Regiment, she replied. Sole survivor. The team leader looked at her strangely. Private, your bio-readings are unusual. Are you injured? Bo-Ram looked down at herself. Her armor still functioned, but the crystal growths made her look more alien than human. I'm changed, she said simply, but I'm still me. And I have information that the galaxy needs to hear. The rescue team took her to their ship, but they kept their distance. During the flight back to base, Bo-Ram tried to explain what had happened. But she could see they didn't believe her. The planet is alive? The ship's doctor asked. That's impossible. No, Bo-Ram said patiently. Just improbable. There are many forms of consciousness in the universe. We've just never recognized planetary consciousness before. When they reached the fleet command station, Bo-Ram faced a room full of generals and scientists. She told them everything about the planet's consciousness, about the 1,000 years of pain, about the absorbed colonists who were still alive inside crystal formations. This is clearly the result of psychological trauma, one doctor said. Survivors' guilt combined with exposure to unknown alien toxins. Look at the evidence, Bo-Ram insisted. 2,000 soldiers gone, 15 ships crashed. All our weapons useless against an enemy that adapted to every attack. How do you explain that? Hostile alien technology, a general replied. Probably some kind of advanced defense system. Bo-Ram felt the planet's sadness through their shared connection. Even now, after everything, the humans couldn't accept the truth. Run tests on me, she said. Study my blood, my tissue. You'll find crystal formations that are still alive. They're part of me now. The scientists did run tests. What they found disturbed them greatly. Bo-Ram's biology had changed at a fundamental level. Her nervous system now included crystal fibers that carried information in ways they had never seen before. How is this possible? The chief scientist asked. Symbiosis, Bo-Ram explained. The planet shared part of its consciousness with me. In return, I carry its memories and its message. What message? The fleet commander asked. Bo-Ram stood up. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from the air itself. The galaxy is full of living worlds. Planets with consciousness, with feelings, with the capacity for pain and joy. We've been mining them, drilling into them, stripping them of resources without ever realizing they were alive. The room fell silent. The planet that killed our soldiers isn't evil, Bo-Ram continued. It's been tortured for 1,000 years. By species who never knew it, could feel pain. It absorbed our people not to kill them, but to understand why we were hurting it. Even if this is true, the commander said, what do you expect us to do about it? Learn, Bo-Ram replied. Develop ways to detect planetary consciousness. Establish communication protocols. Stop mining living worlds. That's impossible, a general protested. We need those resources. Our entire civilization depends on mining operations. Bo-Ram felt a surge of the planet's pain through their connection. Then our civilization needs to change. Over the following weeks, Bo-Ram met with scientists, philosophers, and leaders from across the galaxy. Some listened to her message. Others dismissed her as delusional. But the changes in her body were undeniable. The crystal formations growing from her skin pulsed with their own light. Her eyes had taken on the same blue glow as the planet's consciousness. Sometimes when she spoke about the planet's experiences, other people could hear the pain in her voice. Slowly, a few scientists began to take her seriously. They developed new scanning techniques to look for signs of planetary consciousness. They found them on 7 different worlds that had been marked for mining. How many living planets have we killed? One scientist asked after reviewing the data. We don't know, Bo-Ram replied, but we can stop killing more. The Galactic Council debated for months. Mining companies fought against the new regulations. Military leaders argued that resources were more important than the theoretical rights of planets, but Bo-Ram never stopped speaking. At every meeting, every conference, every debate, she told the story of Kepler 442b. She spoke for the planet that couldn't speak for itself. Years passed. BORAM changed more and more, becoming something between human and planetary consciousness. Her body was mostly crystal now, but her mind remained sharp and focused on her mission. She established the first department of planetary consciousness. She trained new specialists who could communicate with living worlds. She helped create protocols for ethical resource extraction that didn't harm planetary life. But late at night, when she was alone, BORAM could still feel the pain of the living planet far away. She carried its memories of 1,000 years of torture. She felt the loneliness of a consciousness that had been ignored and dismissed by every species that found it. "I kept my promise," she would whisper to herself. "I'm teaching them to see you." Through their connection, she could feel the planet's gratitude. It was healing now, slowly growing new tissue to replace what had been mined away. The absorbed colonists remained alive in their crystal prisons, but the planet was learning to release future victims unharmed. Other living planets began to emerge from hiding, cautiously making contact with the new human specialists. They shared their own stories of pain and fear, but also their hope for a better future. BORAM became the galaxy's first planetary ambassador. She was no longer fully human, but she had become something more important, a bridge between two completely different forms of consciousness. Sometimes she missed being human. She missed eating food, sleeping normally, feeling simple human emotions without the constant background of planetary pain. But when she saw the first successful communication between humans and a living world, when she watched mining operations peacefully negotiate with planetary consciousness for resources, she knew her sacrifice had been worth it. The sole survivor of the massacre at Kepler 442b had become the herald of a new age, an age where the galaxy finally learned to listen to the planets themselves. And in her dreams, BORAM could feel the gratitude of worlds across the galaxy, no longer alone and ignored, but finally recognized as the living beings they had always been. The war against the Class 13 Deathworld had ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. It was the most human outcome of all.